We interrupt this regularly scheduled programming and my lunch to talk about Jonnu Smith going to the Steelers. Heath, this better be good because this chicken parm that I left behind was really good and kind of missing it right now.
Well, I appreciate your real commitment to Jonnu Smith and the Steelers and the Dolphins and fantasy football in general.
So Jonnu Smith was a top 5 tight end last year. He was 4th per game in full PPR. And he's going to the Steelers, where he will now be in 2 tight end sets and on probably a team that's going to run the ball more than the Dolphins will. And the Dolphins, meanwhile, maybe more targets for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, maybe more targets for Achane, although that would be tough. But what changed in your projections? What was the biggest change in your projections?
The biggest change is Jonnu. Well, no, the biggest change is Pat Freiermuth. He goes from maybe relevant to not relevant in my projections. Jonnu was the second biggest change. I did have 9 tight ends projected to score more than 10 PPR fantasy points per game this year. Now I have 8. He fell to tight end 13 in my projections, right in the Jake Ferguson, Dallas Goedert, Brenton Strange range of the projections. Still think there's a chance for Jonnu Smith to matter. He did not impact my Steelers projections, but certainly a potentially big impact on the Dolphins.
So nothing on DK Metcalf.
No.
Okay. Oh, baby, Tyreek Hill. I'm almost disappointed because I wanted to draft a lot of Tyreek Hill, and now I think he'll be a 2nd-round pick. And he's always a 3rd-round pick. Actually, let me check ADP to see where Tyreek Hill is going at the moment. On Fantasy Pros, PPR, Tyreek Hill is 29th pick. He's wide receiver 17.
I think I'm not going to get in your way of drafting Tyreek Hill still. He was a round 4 pick for me. He is a round 3 pick for me. Jalen Waddle I had in round 8. I now have in round 7. Achane got a little boost to the projections, but I can't rank him any higher. But what I think the real mystery box of this situation is that almost immediately we hear from Tom Pelissero that the Dolphins are now in the tight end trade market. And there's a surprising number of tight ends who could be available and interesting in this role who might fill most of what Jonnu Smith did. Cole Kmet could certainly be available. Noah Fant, I think, has been on the trade block. And I know you look at what Jonnu did last year and you think, well, okay, Cole Kmet and Noah Fant aren't doing what Jonnu did last year, but look who Jonnu Smith was before last year. Yeah. I think Michael Mayer could be available in Las Vegas. That's a guy we were excited about before Brock Bowers got there. So I have made a partial adjustment to the projections. Tyreek's now my wide receiver 13. I could make a bigger adjustment in the future.
Yeah, for me, it would come into question, I think, at wide receiver 10 or 11, because let's see, AJ Brown is 9 in our consensus.
Yeah, he's higher for me, but I think what you're talking about is the T. Higgins, Drake London, Ladd McConkey trio.
Exactly.
Those are the 3 guys that I would still prefer to take over Tyreek Hill. I think Ladd is the only one that Tyreek might pass if the Dolphins don't make a significant addition at tight end.
So okay, if they don't make a significant addition at tight end, do you still think Tyreek Hill has wide receiver 1 upside, which he obviously had in both 2022 and 23 with the Dolphins?
I think my question is Mike McDaniel's earlier statements about getting the ball out of Tua's hands even faster. Was that dependent on having a tight end in that Jonnu Smith role to dump the ball off to? I think there's a real possibility. I mean, if you look at last year's Dolphins targets, the real loser was Jalen Waddle.
Yes.
And we've seen a season where Jalen Waddle played that lower ADOT role and saw 140 targets. Well, last year, Tyreek had 123, Jonnu had 111, Achane had 87, and Waddle had 83 in 15 games. So I think there's a lot more room for increasing Waddle's projection even more. And I think there's a decent chance that Achane sees 100 targets this year.
Well, the Dolphins had 11 games with Tua, weeks 1, 2, and 8 through 16. The 17-game paces for the wide receivers in those 11 games was 130, well, not just the wide receivers, everyone. 134 targets for Hill, 117 for Jonnu, 113 for Achane, and 96 for Waddle. And he did miss one game and left another early.
I think he missed 2 games and left one early. He missed week 16 and 17 and left week 15 early.
Tua did not play week 17. So.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, he left one game early, had only 2 targets, and he missed one game. The missed game doesn't really factor into the 17-game pace. The one he left early did, but yeah, I mean, still you had Tyreek Hill leading the way with 134 target pace there, which is a far cry from the 170-ish target pace he was at the previous 2 years. But also, I bring this up a lot. Tua, I believe 3 years in a row has been top 3 in fastest release. That's not necessarily anything new for the Dolphins. They just have to be willing to have a offense that gets rid of the ball quickly, but also at the appropriate times takes deep shots, because that was really missing. They just didn't throw the ball downfield enough last year. All right, so Achane, you already are super high on, not going to change much. It's Hill and Waddle are the big ones here. What about Tua? Is he in this discussion?
Yeah, I've not adjusted Tua yet. Again, I think there's an opportunity for the Dolphins to acquire somebody at a pretty low cost and not lose much in regards to Tua. And it might be better for Tua if he was throwing the ball to Hill and Waddle more and Smith less.
Right. I think that's right. You could make this case, right? In 2022 and 2023, we've seen the Dolphins offense with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and nothing from the tight ends. It was a pretty damn good offense. You know, Tua was on pace for 4,871 yards, 35 touchdowns in 2022, 4,624 yards and 29 touchdowns in 2023. And then, believe it or not, actually better than that in 2024, 4,627 and 31 touchdowns. A little bit better than 2023, but not even close to 2022 when Tua had his best season.
I mean, the obvious real question in connection with that is Tyreek Hill the same guy at 31 years old that he was at 28 and 29?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one question that we cannot answer. We will not know until the season unfolds. But all right, that's where we're at on all these guys. I think that's it. Nothing for Aaron Rodgers or anything.
I'll just go ahead and say it. Like, in the projections, I'm not ranking it this way yet, but I might gain the courage at some point. Achane is my highest projected running back right now.
How many targets did he have last year?
83 or 87.
He was, what did I say? He was on pace for more than 100 with Tua. He was on pace for 113 targets with Tua. And he averaged almost 23 fantasy points per game with Tua.
Right.
I don't really know what the explanation was for that difference in target share, target per route run, and all that. It felt like that was come down regardless. I think
the explanation for it is the fact that they're not throwing the ball on the field.
Yeah.
I'd rather, as much as Tyreek Hill has been an incredible player at this stage in their careers, if I'm going to give the ball to somebody within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, I would rather it be Achane than Tyreek Hill. And I think Mike McDaniel would too.
All right. Well, I'd like to give Tyreek Hill the ball 20 yards past the line of scrimmage. Let's get that going here. All right, that's it, I think, for this show, except one last aspect. This obviously weakens the tight end group. So does this make Bowers, McBride, and Kittle even more valuable?
I am not going to bump them up because it doesn't really change replacement cost that much at the position. I still think Jonnu Smith's going to get drafted. He's just going to get drafted later. It probably makes the great Jamie Eisenberg strategy of great or late at tight end a little bit more appealing because there's one less guy. I mean, you get past those first 3 or 4 tight ends, and now you got to decide, when do you want to take David Njoku? When do you want to take Travis Kelce? When do you want to take TJ Hawkinson? And then you're done. It's slate.
Yeah. You made a comment on the show we did earlier today on Monday morning. You made a joke about Dave's OnlyFans drafts, fans only. And someone in the comments had already laughed about it. Like, oh, Heath's hilarious little OnlyFans joke. And I've been making that joke since last year. So you stole great or late from me and you gave it to Jamie. If you start getting credit for OnlyFans, we're gonna have a problem here.
I think you might want to work on your delivery.
I don't think so. I think the deliveries are really good. I'm very happy with the delivery. All right. Well, thank you very much, Heath, and we'll talk to everybody tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today.